Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Yu-Gi-Oh! And video game news. I will wrap up the accountability section for today in just a few sentences, really, because while the Amazon Prime Day event took a bunch of my attention away for a couple days, I've also had this zit or whatever in my eyebrow, and it is getting better, but over the past couple of days it's just been pretty bad, and so it's painful enough that if I was to try and make a pre-recorded video, the fear is that I would literally be squinting with one eye, or I would be in so much pain that I would just be complaining about it in the recording, much like I am now. So I really haven't done that. Now, I've dropped the ball because I have gotten Zelda Breath of the Wild for Nintendo Switch. That's a Nintendo game, so I can't make footage around it. But I do want to play that game, so I should have been playing that. Instead, what I've been doing is mostly lying around in pain, sleeping, and instead playing awful games on my cell phone that are being advertised to me. So yeah, I'm playing one with the people that you drag to the left and right through gates, and it adds more people, and that game is just like totally awful and doesn't have any longevity to it, I'm sure. And then I'm playing one where it's the goblins mining, and while the advertisement for that is completely misleading, because at least so far I have yet to see an instance where the goblins actually have a tractor going through a field to mine, which is the way the advertisement shows it. Instead, it's individual goblins on individual rocks, and it's a just game that's going to be an idle game that's going to go further and further. In fact, it's not too far off from what I imagine the Dungeon Keeper mobile game was. The only difference there is Dungeon Keeper mobile game, just having the name Dungeon Keeper in its title should have been a lot better, and I think the wait time on Dungeon Keeper was probably higher than it should have been. Although in this Goblins, I think it's called Goblins and Gold game, while visually is a little bit more polished and has a couple things more going for it, it's still really not a game that you could put much attention to. All these mobile games, as they try to advertise to you, are designed to engage you a little bit and then engage a certain percentage of players for a very long amount of time. Because the longer they can engage you, the more ads those games can push you to. So it's a scam where you will play a game you might like, see an ad, be interested, click on that ad to install another game, and then that next game, maybe you like it a little bit less, but probably you don't like it anywhere as much, but it engages you enough so it shows you more ads to click on and install other games. It's really trying to make you ADD and just an ad clicker, to the point where the real game is just going to be watch the ads and click on the ads and install other apps, so that the ad agency that is selling all of these ads can sell more ads, because that's all they really care about. I suppose what we want to do here is destroy spells. But suffice it to say, it's not really a good system. And it's not something people should really engage with. But on the back end of the idea of getting more ads anyways, the next step after getting you to watch more ads, the next goal is to frustrate the player with incredible wait cooldown timers, or wait timers that you can cheat by buying with real money. And honestly, if that's just 3% of the people who ever play your game even buys one purchase, that's good enough for them, because it's not like they put a lot of effort into these games in the first place. And that's really the state of mobile gaming, as I see it, is that none of the games are actually worth playing. Alright, well, I think that'll potentially work out for me. Yeah, it does hurt less, but it is extremely distracting. The pain, it's right on the nerve. Let's see. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. I should try this weekend. I may not even finish Wolfenstein: The Old Blood this weekend. I may just try to play Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now the danger with that, of course, is that I really don't have time to get into Breath of the Wild, but I should play it anyways. I'm not getting anywhere fast as far as trying to catch up. The other thing that's happening is, as of like the 1st of next month, several of the Lego sets are going up in price, so I've purchased probably the last thing I'll buy this year as far as Lego. Maybe not. There may be a sale or something, but I wouldn't be surprised if I'm set for at least 6 months to a year. And honestly, I have so much Lego, and I'm really not doing a great job of organizing it and setting it up for display, and I have just kind of stalled halfway through the project of just moving things around and organizing it after building all of those bookshelves. But yeah, saying I'm going to buy more Lego than I'm going to boycott Lego is kind of silly, but it really should be kind of a case where fans of Lego do boycott Lego, because they are ridiculously increasing the prices on plastic bricks for no good reason. Or at least no explained good reason. Let's see. One of the things I'm going to do is I need to make a slight tweak to my macro, which I keep having to make these slight tweaks, but that's fine. They're slight and tweaks. They're not spending entire days thinking it up. But I'm gonna Oh, I actually did tweak it, didn't I? I'm going to experiment with a tweak I already have made to make sure that the fall list will run and give up if it doesn't run, and then just let the rest of the macro run. Because right now I have it programmed where it doesn't give up, it just tries over and over again, and that becomes a blocker for the rest of the game to the rest of the macro to run. Let's see, so we've got some fall list at the front because I manually ran it. Sabadia 1945 Liberation seems to be based on a kind of documentary with a small game around it. We'll put it on the wish list. It follows the rules, at least. But that does also remind me that I still have that problem. I don't think I can fix a solution to that problem. Well, I have to hold down the control button to add things to the wish list. And then we have Sven's Sudoku pad, which these are the YouTubers I think that made Sudoku. I'm not sure that maybe this is just not one of the good ones. Let's see what else this guy's made. Nope, just this one Sudoku thing. So these aren't the same publisher and developer of the other Sudoku games, which might explain why this one in itself seems to be. So this might be a slightly different YouTuber, I guess. Regardless, it doesn't have enough relevancy, so that can leave the fall list. This again is rated very positive and relevant, so we can put that on the wish list. Alright, here we go. Can we win here? Nope. So we'll just concede and lose. Here we have a visual novel that's mixed, and it claims to have nudity in it, but must not have enough to satisfy its audience. So that can leave the fall list. Here we have Surviving the Aftermath, which is mixed in the last 30 days. I probably would say no to a top-down strategy zombie apocalypse survival type post-apocalyptic game. But I guess what I would want to do here is just wait and check later. Surviving the Rift is a side-scrolling shooter, and it doesn't have any relevancy, so that can leave the fall list. Plus, it's still in early access since April 15th, 2021. This Survival Vacancy is mixed reviewed, so that can leave the fall list. If anything, this is really just highlighting how I've been bad about making decisions, and I've put a lot of just games that probably didn't deserve to be on the fall list in the first place in the fall list. I'm gonna leave this one. This probably is never gonna get any user reviews, but I'll wait until 2023 to remove it. This is mixed again, so this again can go. At a certain level, yes, it does seem like you could put everything on the fall list and wait six weeks to 6 months and you'll get a review for it. This is a VR game, so I'll leave it on the fall list because of that reason. And then, unfortunately, Surgical Simulator is mixed. I would kind of like a game like this, but any good like VR simulator is probably being sold for a huge markup to hospitals and doctors and not going to just be listed on Steam for free. We already talked about this Video Games Chronicle article. Alright. I may have already lost. I suppose if I destroy those two, then I summon this, then I activate this. Just go through the entire loop. There is, I suppose, an argument here that it may not actually be worth the effort to go through this entire loop. Even though it is the right move, it's the right move that takes a lot of steps. Which, arguably, there's probably a right way to win at chess if you just take the maximum amount of steps possible, but nobody wants to really play that way because you're not factoring in your own time. Well, don't have enough characters in the graveyard now. So I am in trouble. Let's see. Assassin's Creed Rift is reportedly being set in Baghdad, according to Video Games Chronicles. You could certainly do that, just depending on the time frame. Like, you're not going to set it into any kind of Middle Eastern country in the middle of modern times, but you could fairly easily set it in the past and not cause too much controversy. Like, Assassin's Creed originally started basically in the middle of the Crusades, so yeah, that can happen. The bigger issue certainly is just that whatever Assassin's Creed is now is not likely to become the Assassin's Creed that it once did. There were points at the end of Assassin's Creed 3 talking about Central American, South American cultures such as the Aztecs. Not in the past, but in the modern day, I think is how that went. But there's never been a game, particularly in that era, in that time frame. In fact, they had to bend over backwards to even explain how in Assassin's Creed 3 there was an assassin that made it all the way to the colonies, the United States predecessors. Not that I think they particularly care about having that consistent of a narrative or story. I think they're more than happy to twist it and bend the narrative to whatever the next game needs. I forgot at the end of last recording to open 10 packs of legacy packs, come to think of it. Let's see, moving on. Video Games Chronicles says Nintendo is acquiring a computer-generated graphics company, or CG company, which will be renamed Nintendo Pictures. Dynamo Pictures will strengthen the visual content in Nintendo Group. Now, arguably, this may just be a case where they've realized that they needed more 3D modelers and animators for video games, because the process is pretty much exactly the same now to make a CG animation as in a game versus not in a game. But it may also be that they plan on very quickly having their own in-house companies make cartoons, and as they are now delving their toe back into making cartoons and animated movies, and they probably don't want to share the profits there. Even the Pokemon movies of previous decades, if all of those had been made in-house, I imagine that would have made more profit for Nintendo instead of having to cut in middlemen. I forgot it was my turn there. That's really one of those examples where the game should just end for me. I don't believe there was a single thing I could have done there. Dynamo in particular worked on Yuri on Ice, which was a very much beloved anime. Although I don't think it actually was a Yuri, come to think of it. It was actually Yaoi on Ice, would have been the accurate term, because it was two guys, I thought, that were in love with each other, that were ice skaters, not two girls. But maybe that was the joke. Aya and the Witch, which I don't really remember what that looked like. And then the season 2 of Netflix's Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. And if anything is to be taken from that, the fact that they're working on a second season of a Netflix quote-unquote anime probably highlights that they are not doing particularly well as a animation company in a time where they should be doing a lot better as an anime company. Like, there isn't a really great reason or example as to why any animation company shouldn't be doing fairly well. There's a lot of demand for work. I know there's a lot of competition also. I don't know if those animation styles don't feel particularly consistent. Yuri on Ice was pretty realistic in its animation style, but Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex 2045, I'm fairly certain has that awful CGI look to it. So, yeah, it's questionable to say the least that you would have that company as in your sights to buy. This might also be a case, very possibly, where the value of sitting on cash may no longer be worth it for Nintendo. They allegedly have a ton of cash, over 100 years of operating expenses was what they used to boast. And with a slightly new boss in charge of Nintendo, maybe they just don't see a value there. Maybe they don't see a value in sitting on cash in a bank in Japan with the current valuation of the economy and the yen. Let's see, Dynamo made CG for Final Fantasy 13-2 and provided motion capture for such titles as Death Stranding, Nier Replicant, Monster Hunter World, and Persona 5. And see, each of these examples are really better examples, I think, of what they were actually looking for when buying this company. Is that, yeah, Nier Replicant, Death Stranding, motion capture in general, it may be something that Nintendo hasn't even delved into. Nintendo first-party titles that have motion capture, I don't think there's a single one that exists. Like, we could literally have a story about a new Nintendo game being the first Nintendo game with motion capture. And see, if that's the case, then that would make a lot of sense. It's also worth, I guess, pointing out here that they already have Nintendo Studios, which appeared on copyright listings for the upcoming Super Mario animated movie. Nintendo would definitely benefit more from motion capture animation experts and more animators for games than they would benefit from a company that's specifically just gonna make animated shows and movies, because there really isn't any long-term success or profit in making animated movies and or cartoons. Disney's got that on lock, and even in that case, Disney Plus is not advertising itself as the place to see new Mickey Mouse cartoons or Disney movies that would be in the theater first. No, it's advertising itself instead as being the place to see Marvel movies and Star Wars movies and shows. I could activate this thing, but why would I? Alright, let's activate this. Let's activate this. Which one would be like the best one to put on the field? Discard 2 cards and bring back something that's been banished. Has there been anything that's banished that's worth bringing back? And I could bring back that and then discard those 2 cards. Oh, my options apparently more limited than I thought. Then we could do this, and then this, and then this. Activate that. Activate that. Okay. Let's now see what happens when we go into attack mode and start attacking. So he's pulling some kind of trick here, obviously. But is it a big enough trick, or is he just going through the motions? Moving on, Video Games Chronicles says EA makes the Mass Effect and Dragon Age DLC free on Origin, ahead of plans to discontinue its BioWare points currency. So while Uplay is getting worse and worse, EA, which is the company that notoriously everybody hates, seems to be making Origin a little bit better. Now, at some level, I assume this is probably just them focusing in on microtransactions for more modern games, because you can see here that currencies like crystal and platinum and other BioWare games will be unaffected. So I imagine this is just a case where those games were using BioWare points, and they very possibly are just trying to get rid of the phrase BioWare. That is also a possibility. So this card can't be destroyed basically for one whole turn. Let's see, moving on. Free Monster Hunter Rise DLC has been released to celebrate the new Sunbreak sales milestone. An impact given away to coincide with the expansion of the expansion surpassing 3 million copies shipped. Right. Let's now do this. Okay, we want to special summon that one. We want to probably special summon that one and that one. See, that's still not strong enough though, so I probably have lost here. Let's see. Apparently bootleg Nintendo soundtracks are being sold for big money on eBay. Fake recreations of CDs such as Banjo-Kazooie soundtrack are selling for hundreds of dollars. Which, interesting, I suppose, in my Nintendo collection. Somewhere in the garage, assuming it isn't ruined. I have a couple of these original soundtracks. It would be a fairly easy thing to bootleg. It would be a fairly easy thing also for CD soundtracks to be fairly damaged and or unplayable, and look like they're bootleg because of sun damage and sun bleaching. Each of those would be believable. They're saying here that sellers in Japan are hoarding the entire market and artificially rising the price, according to this article, which I'd also be believable. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Japanese versions of the soundtracks in particular are particularly expensive. I wonder sometimes on these like restoration and backup projects that people sometimes do with ROMs. I wonder if there is a project out there that is already been done or has yet to be even started where you would actively have a like download perfect CD copies of the soundtracks if you just want to hear the music. I imagine the music isn't at that big of a risk of being lost. The physical item is at risk of being lost, but eventually that's going to be true for everything, is that the physical versions of things will go away and museums will just be holograms or digital museums. That's certainly very believable. This one, this one, and this one. Just getting worse and worse options. Right. Okay. Finally. So I should have kept the link monsters in the graveyard, and I've now learned that. Yeah. I'm going very quiet here. I'm both half asleep and also in pain, and this may very well need to be our last game. Ubisoft has revealed the first Division Resurgence gameplay. If you want to check that out, a Video Games Chronicle. Let's activate a trap here, and then special summon that one. Special summon that one. Add that to the hand, I suppose. And it's gonna tell me to stick it back in the deck, I think. Let's see. An open world Final Fantasy XVI would have taken 15 years to make, claims the producer. It is practically impossible to ask for everything, says Naoki Yoshida. I don't know if I really believe that Final Fantasy fans even want a everything. But open world games do exist in fantasy RPG genres, so this comes off very much like an excuse and ridiculous concept here. It speaks certainly to a desire amongst Final Fantasy creators to create extremely long games while extremely also being extremely narrow games, to effectively stretch out a game like a piece of spaghetti, when you could take that exact same spaghetti and ball it up and have a normal ball of spaghetti with parts that overlap each other. Final Fantasy, even when it really doesn't have any story, as someone who hasn't actually played any of the most recent Final Fantasy games, they definitely feel like there is a point A, point B, point C, all the way to point Z in the way you have to play those games. Whereas you could take some of those points out and make them branches and make them optional, and that might maybe save the day and make a more open world game. Final Fantasy games, I imagine, also want to have every fight be fairly unique and special, and you could even do that in open world games too. You don't have to have randomly spawning enemies. You could make a open world where there is a specific fight with a specific monster in the same location always. Well, I seriously doubt this is going to win it for me. Nope. So yeah, this really does come off as a terrible excuse. What is the better way to respond to this when asked about open world? You should just say, please bear with us. We feel you will be satisfied with the experience we give you, and open world. Open world is not the experience we wanted to create, or we felt open world would distract from the core experience that we want our players to have. Things like that. We feel the game we considered open world and feel the game is going to be better without it. Something like that. But just saying it is practically impossible to ask for everything is not a good response. And it does kind of highlight how a lot of the developers of games all over the world, not just Japan, are not really trained for being asked questions on Twitter or through interviews, and they definitely need more public relations people to be in charge of communications. Although ironically, if you're the producer, if you're the person that's supposed to be in charge of running the whole team, your communication skills should be very, very good, and that really highlights how the boss, the manager, the producer, whatever it is in any job, is often not really qualified to do the job that they have. Alright, put this face up. Well, we immediately got a quick victory. Let's hop into another game. Let's see. Sony has revealed PlayStation Stars, a new loyalty program featuring digital collectibles. It's definitely not NFTs, definitely not you can trade them. You can't trade them or sell them. I can't help but wonder if these originally were going to be NFTs and they made a quick turn. So it's Team Fortress hats or knife skins without all the problems of Team Fortress hats and knife skins. But maybe not even that complicated because it is, it may not even be in-game collectibles that you can display in games. It may be something completely separate. I didn't bother to read the article because I need to really rush here. I'm just not up to streaming today. And see, here you have an article that's kind of smacks in the face of the previous statement. Final Fantasy XVI ditched turn-based combat to appeal to a younger generation, says the producer. I thought about the expected sales of Final Fantasy XVI and the impact that we have to deliver. Well, wait a minute. If you're trying to appeal to the younger generations kind of want open world games. So, if anything, I think this is a case where he has in mind the game he wants to create, or has partially already created, and now he is retroactively trying to find excuses and explanations for why the game was the way it was created. It does not inspire confidence in me, for sure, because it feels like if you were going to say, we're going to make Final Fantasy 16 and it's going to be like this, this, and this, you probably would have said that you have a presenter just speak that without any video footage to show or anything like that. You would have said that a little bit earlier. Particularly Japanese companies would have said that a little bit earlier, and they would have put out just like a concept image and said, this is how it's going to play and this is how it's going to go. You wouldn't have a fairly polished trailer ready to go and then spring the information. And if anything, that's probably their problem, is that had they a year ago said Final Fantasy 16 was not going to be open world and that that it was going to get rid of turn-based combat, then that would have probably played a lot better. If I take this and then you can only play one of these at a time. Yeah, let's just go through this quickly. What I suppose I want to do is just destroy this card. And then let the others go into an attack mode. And if that doesn't work, then I'm screwed. probably screwed at this point. Set this as a trap. Pretend that's a trap. And then activate this. And hope that that isn't something he can counter, but it does seem like it is something he can counter. Yep, I am doomed. Moving on, Video Games Chronicles says Street Fighter 6 characters have special animations for perfect rounds. So I assume perfect rounds are something that they are expecting, which arguably maybe in a high-level competitive game like Street Fighter, or that you want it to be high-level competitive, maybe you should balance your game a little bit better so that you won't have perfect rounds. Oh, at least most people won't have perfect rounds to the point where it would be kind of pointless to have those animations be made. Let's see. Activate a trap card, destroy ranked cards, duel in solo mode. Spectate a duel live. And we got the daily login. Spectate a duel live here. And then let's just focus on the news. Next week's free Epic Games Store titles have been announced. Tannenberg and Shop Titans will replace Wonder Boy the Dragon's Trap. Let's see. The My Nintendo Store is going down for maintenance and will last for a few weeks in Europe. The European Euro, I guess that's redundant to say that, its value is almost down to equaling $1. So that has created an interesting situation, but probably not a good situation financially for the economy in general. I can't help but assume economically, not to get into a big economics rant, that we very possibly are going to see some major quote-unquote corrections happen to the world economy and the markets. A recession is possible, if not likely, in China. Everything is made in China, and every country is interconnected, or at least most big countries are interconnected in their economy, so it could hurt the economy. Maybe the economy deserves to be hurt, and maybe the world would be better if some things get corrected, but at a certain point it's going to be a really, really hard adjustment period to, say, get rid of the ideas of consumerism that have been put into entire generations of minds and blood, and get people to be as frugal and as unwilling to spend as, say, some of the people out after the Great Depression, because that is potentially closer to normal, or what things should have always been. But yeah, with Brexit potentially at some point in the future actually happening, you have the European countries getting better and better economies tend to be on the left side of the map of Europe, and worse and worse economies tend to be on the right side of the map, and you have a whole war happening on the right side of the map. So when you take out the UK with a Brexit, then you're taking out one of the better economies that was kind of bolstering the valuation of the euro, even though they never fully adopted the usage of the euro in the UK, which that's just going to bring the average down. Meanwhile, there was more strength in numbers than people probably wanted to admit, with UK being a part of the European Union. And ironically, a lot of the Brexit fear-mongering tactics saying that the European Union wanted a standing army and wanted to be able to conscript its member states' armies, that frankly doesn't sound like such a bad idea. There are some legitimate objections to that, but seeing how Ukraine went down, if the European Union had a standing army ready to go, trained and properly good at logistics, the war in Ukraine could be shortened, if not won. I should play some more, but I really don't want to, but I'll give it one more try. One more game. Moving on with the news, Multiversus Open Beta has been dated with new gameplay trailer. Check that out on Video Games Chronicles. Skate 4 apparently is going to be a free-to-play online game officially titled Skate. And EA insists that it won't include any pay-to-win mechanics. Arguably, if it's free-to-play, does that mean it has multiplayer? And what kind of multiplayer? Yeah, there really is a question there as to, is this going to be an experience where you just skate for people who just want to skate, or is there going to be races and challenges and an actual in-the-game experience that to be had? If it's a game where you just skate whenever you want to skate, it almost feels like it would be a title specifically designed just to have a game out there called Skate and maintain the legacy of a game called Skate existing. Otherwise, I am just confused. Right, we could do this a couple different ways. Best way, I think, is just to do this, though. I suppose inherently that's the problem with skating games in general, is that you have people who just kind of are going to want the open world experience to play at their leisure, and you could certainly sell cosmetic items around that and make some money, but probably not enough. And then there's going to be people who want more of a video game experience where you go through a season, you do races, you do trick competitions, and if it is an online leaderboard situation where you're competing against people that way, that might work. If it's some other direct competitive player versus player experience, that might work, but I don't see really a reason why it would need to be player versus leaderboards. Um, so yeah. Let's see. Here we have a quote here that you probably don't ever want to see in the news. Video Games Chronicle says Unity's boss says developers who don't plan monetization earlier are effing idiots. John Riccitello was discussing the merger with the app economy firm IronSource. So basically he's saying that before you even make the first steps of being in alpha or pre-alpha states, you should be thinking about monetization instead of actually making good games, which I think most gamers would clearly agree that that is not how you want people to start. Is to start from the passion of we're going to really make a lot of money and milk the customer as much as possible. That's how you get some of these awful Dungeon Keeper mobile games. And pretty much most mobile games start from that perspective. Let's see, moving on. God of War Ragnarok pre-orders are open, revealing PlayStation 5 graphics, modes, and more. Check out that article if you're interested, although frankly I think just everybody should just wait till the game has come out. The Zelda Ocarina of Time's unofficial PC port now supports macOS and Wii U, so they're still making good progress on that effort and still have yet to be sued out of existence by Nintendo. Amid criticism, Sega says it will fix Sonic Origins issues. The team's been listening and is working to fix a variety of issues right now. Does that mean they'll fix all of the issues that people have? Not really. Does that mean people are going to stick around to find out that they're happy with Sonic Origins, or are we going to just find Sega pretend to work on it for a year, put out one patch 12 months later, and then abandon it for some other new bundle or release? In a lot of ways, it feels like the Sonic teams bounce between, we're making a new Sonic game, whoops, that Sonic game sucks, let's make a re-release of the old Sonic games because people like that, whoops, that sucks, let's make a new game instead since that didn't work, whoops, that sucks. And it's just been decades upon decades of that happening. Like, at its core concept, I just don't know if there is actually a good Sonic game that you can consistently make with the running and spinning hedgehog gameplay mechanics. And I definitely think whoever's in charge at Sega doesn't know how to make that game consistently anyways. It's very possible that there literally are only two good Sonic games, and that's Sonic 1 and Sonic 2. And all the rest are just garbage. So Sonic really would have been better off if it had been given more of the Metroid treatment as a game that Nintendo doesn't really care about as far as Metroid and series. They do at least occasionally come out with a decent Metroid game, or wait until they do have a decent Metroid game, or they put it in the hands of a third-party developer to make a decent Metroid game. Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says World of Warcraft's Dragonflight's alpha test has launched. Okay. The God of War Ragnarok Jotnar, is that Jotnar or Jotar? It's probably Jotar. I wouldn't be surprised if they end this silent. Anyways, that edition is already being scalped for 3 times its retail price, which anytime you hear these articles, that's just pointless to even read them or to report on it. Yes, somebody has gotten some pictures and made an eBay listing. Do they actually have the product, or is it a scam? You wouldn't really be able to tell. Is anybody actually going to buy the game at that? Probably not a significant enough number of people will buy it at 3 times the price for it to matter. Worldwide PC market apparently had the sharpest decline in 9 years in the second quarter of 2022, which I would assume that has a lot more to do with cryptocurrencies falling and not being able to crypto mine with PCs anymore at all. Not a ton of pre-builts or components that you really would have wanted to buy in that quarter. Now, arguably, the prices have started to go down. It might now be the time to buy things, despite the fact that inflation is just higher across the board. Now, it wouldn't be the worst time to build a computer, because you just don't know what's going to happen in the future, but also it's probably better to save your money. Yeah, I don't know what the next big thing really would be. Wait for a second generation DDR5 motherboards and RAM. Wait for that DDR5 RAM to drop in speeds, and for us to reach a critical point where an XMP profile on the DDR4 is still being beat by a standard DDR5 speed. It's motherboard specific, but some motherboards are going to come out that have the newest capabilities for Intel and AMD processors, but they're going to be able to use both DDR4 and DDR5 RAM, which I think probably implies that the DDR4 and 5 form factor are the same. So it is also possible you could put in DDR5 RAM into a DDR4 motherboard and it would just run slower. But there is kind of a newer power chip technology on DDR5 RAM, so you would think they would want to put a new form factor on it. They really should. The way it's connecting now could be done, I think, better. But I would hesitate to question how you'd make it much better. It probably would just be a slot that it would probably just be a slot with more pins and taller sides. That would be my hope. That's about the only thing you could really hope for. You could try to have better cooling solutions. If you would be adding components, certainly, if you had a like caddy that you put the RAM in, and then you slotted four sticks of RAM into the caddy, and then plugged in the caddy into like a PCI Express type slot, that would probably be a little too much. Uh-oh. This is trouble, I think. I think I may have lost here. My only hope. is that I just have enough left. Let's see, that one, that one, that one, and that one. Nope, I'm doomed. Let's see. Video Games Chronicle says Banjo-Kazooie's decompilation project is now 80% complete, which could lead to a PC port. I think faster and faster we're going to see this be the case, because I think pretty much all Nintendo 64 games are programmed in the exact same APIs and same programming language. If anything, it might be more difficult to decompile more modern games, because I think maybe the Xbox original, maybe the Xbox 360, and probably the Xbox Series consoles probably do have 2 or 3 different APIs and a lot more different versions of APIs. Here you can see they're also working on decompiling Blast Corps, Body Harvest, Bomberman, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Dinosaur Planet, Mario Kirby 64, Mario Party 3, Mischief Makers, Mystic Ninja, Paper Mario, Pokemon Snap and Stadium, Snowboard Kids, Turok 3, and Yoshi's Story. And at that list, you're actually getting to a point where maybe you just make a RetroArch core that takes the elements of the copyrighted elements outside of a ROM for a Nintendo 64 game, and then puts it into its own engine that has been pre-programmed to run all of these games way better. And at that point, you wouldn't actually be emulating, you would be recompiling the game in real time, or probably on a RetroPie. I wouldn't be surprised if it would get down to the point where it would be easier just to say, let's recompile it. Now, in that thought, that would mean that these decompilation ports and projects would have to be combined by somebody. Either they'd all have to work together to combine themselves, and they would have to be able to render out a reduced instruction set for a Raspberry Pi ARM Cortex, which I think the ARM Cortex is in Raspberry Pis. So you'd have to make it for a different kind of processor than your standard AMD 64 complete instruction set code. But that definitely feels like that is doable. It is kind of funny because we are slowing down here on getting these last 5 levels, but we've got 45 days, so there's really no reason to worry about that. Let's open 10 packs here. And then I think that is going to be it for me as far as today. Like, the only thing I can do, and it only helps a little bit, is put heat on my eyebrow, and it doesn't really work. It's not like it's a zit that's coming to a head or anything. It feels like it's way at the bottom of the lowest levels of the skin, which they talk about the epidermis and dermis, but in actual medical teachings, there's like 3 levels of the epidermis and then another 8 levels of the dermis. So there's actually like 8 incredibly thin levels that they've identified in the skin. And this feels like this is at the lowest level, and it's pushing into the muscle and skin and bone in my skull. Let's see. 343 has offered the first look into Halo Infinite's campaign co-op mode. Check that out if you're interested. Fall Guys players forced to auto-buy items are reportedly being denied refunds. In an email response reportedly from Mediatonic, it has also angered fans. An error in the game's store is causing them to buy items they intended to preview, and Mediatonic is denying refunds. That seems crazy, and that definitely seems like a bad way to do business. Credit card companies and debit companies are going to have to start canceling and denying transactions a lot more, and there probably needs to be slightly better laws to stop people from denying refunds and then you having to go through the effort of going through a bank to cancel the things and then you losing access to your account because then they block you from the account. There's too many cases of revenge actions taken by companies, and perhaps a general anti-revenge law should be enacted to protect consumers, and that's a joke, frankly, that there would ever be any consumer protections in the world. Like, there's a difference between somebody being mad at a restaurant because they make them wear a mask or something, and then putting a negative Yelp review, and then somebody who owns the restaurant threatening to sue that person who put a negative Yelp review, even if the Yelp review is slanderous and libelous. There should be, at the very least, and really I should have described that as two scenarios. If you put a little legitimate Yelp review on a restaurant because they treated you badly, and then the owner threatens to sue you, that threat alone should carry a much higher penalty. And there should be more consumer protection there, just on the fact that anybody who owns a restaurant probably has more money than somebody who's going to put a Yelp review out. And in the opposite scenario, if somebody lies on a Yelp review just because they're mad about something else on that restaurant, that shouldn't be as big of a deal, and it really isn't. People rely on Yelp reviews all the time, and the only one that societies are, of those two scenarios, the only scenario people ever care about is when the owner threatens to sue or does some kind of spiteful revenge thing. Now, arguably, a law against revenge should potentially exist anyways, but in video games, yeah, we definitely hear scenarios where the company was in the wrong, the company refuses to admit it was in the wrong and issue a refund. You have to then go to the bank and convince the bank that the company is in the wrong to get a refund, and then you lose access to an account that you have put a lot of money into, because effectively the company in this Fall Guy scenario stole money from you. It should be as equally easy for then the bank to say, you know what, we're going to notice that this is a mobile game, and we know how this is going to go if we refund the $5 they stole from you. So let's just do a reverse transaction for all the money you've ever spent on that game and really hurt that company. Or really get you all of your money back. Because if you no longer have access to your account, and if you legitimately purchased $100 and then they ban you because they stole $5 from you and you demanded it back, you should get all $105 back. And maybe that specifically should just be a case for mobile games, but that's not a terrible thought, certainly. but banks only can go back so far. And if you've been playing the game for years, they should be kind of allowed to go back the whole distance. Particularly for mobile games. Maybe exclusively for mobile games. The argument gets a little bit weirder when you're talking about something like Netflix. If Netflix banned your account because they overcharged you for a month, you'd probably, since you were paying for a month-to-month service there, shouldn't get all your money back. But even if you did have some unfair or less than fair scenarios that disadvantaged big corporations, that would only encourage big corporations to be very generous about making sure the customer is happy. The customer is always right, you know, that old saying that nobody believes anymore. Let's see. Moving on, Elden Ring is one of the best-selling games in U.S. history. The game has placed first in dollar sales in 4 of the 5 months it has been available. Which, okay. It's so funny that people haven't really talked about Elden Ring, though. And inflation may be affecting the number of sales. Because when you look at this list, which is really small, you're seeing like Elden Ring, then Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, and then Mario Strikers, and Overwatch, and Mass Effect, Switch Sports. Yeah, this number, this headline seems to be wrong. But then they repeat it in the article down here too. I guess maybe it's the best selling in the first 5 months. It's not the best selling overall. Minecraft has to have made more money than Elden Ring. And I would just fall back to, it still doesn't really feel like that many people are talking about Elden Ring, or that story is really that interesting. I'm not seeing a lot of cosplayers trying to do Elden Ring, or memers out there around it. Moving on, Xbox latest Ultimate Game Sale is offering savings up to 80%. Discounts on almost 800 products according to Microsoft. I assume this is through the Xbox store on PC and consoles, which I've never paid any attention to console sales. Let's see. Gamatsu talking about the Sega Genesis 2 launching October 27th. The Mini 2. Dimp's developed fighting game series called The Rumblefish is coming to console this week, which oddly seems to already have a sequel. Yep, I don't even know what Dimps is. Is that the name of a company? Dimps Corporation is the company's name. Interesting. Corite has announced a rhythm game called Massage Freaks for the Switch, which, again, this feels like one of those games that's going to be censored in some way in the West or on the PlayStation here. I think in the United States, and this is a personal opinion that I think many parents will disagree with, the art of massage is lost in the United States as a precursor to just being comfortable in your body, comfortable touching other people's bodies, and letting other people touch your body. And all that being eventually a precursor to more hugging / groping and normal young adult activity. And almost certainly this rhythm game is going to lean into the lewd because you can definitely see a lot of anime girls here with long legs and cleavage, and that's certainly where it's going to focus. And most of these massage minigames tend to be removed from other games, but if that is the only focus of this game, it'd be real hard to remove the minigame and have anything left. I wouldn't be surprised if there's actually no real nudity here, but it does seem to be fairly lewd. And I assume that that's going to be a digital only game. It is silly in my mind, as part of my opinion, that most parents would not agree with and not want to see happen in the United States because they're far too prudish. But it is very silly to think that you're not going to really try very hard to educate your kids at all about sex and work really hard so that they never date or hang around people that are interested in having any kind of romantic interest, and then some point in the middle of college or after college you're expecting them to then start dating with no experience or education around it, and then get married, and then on their wedding night then have sex with no real experience and no education. It's really just not preparing your kids well there. And it's not just the physical aspect, it's definitely the relationship and the emotional aspect that hurts more in those cases, because people just don't know how to date, how to deal with other people, how to care about other people's emotions and feelings, and how to navigate other people's emotions and feelings. If you're not just kind of constantly dating, and when you're dating, unless you're going steady, and if said you're going steady, you should probably be dating 2 or 3 people at the same time. But yeah, you should definitely date through a lot of people and make those mistakes early and make your mistakes quickly. That way, when you are getting to the point of making a potentially lifelong commitment with marriage, you're really prepared for it, and you're very experienced in the dating scene and the activity of dating. And if that were to happen more often, I imagine we would have a much lower rate of divorces, and if not a lower rate of divorces, definitely a lower rate of angry, nasty divorces, where people are fighting and absolutely hate each other after 3 or 4 years of being married. Moving on with the Komatsu news, Fairy Fencer F Refrain Chords opening movie is available. Check that out if you're interested. Pocky and Rocky Reshined has sold over 100,000, which I imagine that's probably a decent number of sales considering what the game actually is. Plus, I'm not even 100% sure that it has been released in the West. It says PS4 and Switch only. Star Ocean The Divine Force character trailers for Raymond Lawrence and Letitia Asura? Asurius? I don't know how you pronounce it. Are you serious? It's almost Are You Serious as the last name. Either way, I don't know what Star Ocean The Divine Force is, so check out that article if you're interested. The Resident Evil 2 remake shipments and digital sales have topped 10 million. Again, they are mixing shipments with digital sales to get bigger numbers, and if anything, that might be an indication that the Resident Evil sales are slowing down a little bit. They went too fast, frankly. Resident Evil 7 was a big seller. They could have taken another 6 months to a year to release Resident Evil 2, then they could have probably taken a couple more months between when Resident Evil 2 came out to release Resident Evil 3, and now they've created a problem with Resident Evil Village coming out a little too close. They're practically putting out one game every year when one game every 2 years. Even if you're already finished with the games, would have been better. Plus, if they were already finished with the games, they could have just put more of the DLC in the main game instead of selling it as DLC, which that's laughable that they'd ever do that. Demon Slayer has a new character. DLC character, if you want to check him out. We already talked about Nintendo acquiring Dynamo Pictures. That's a very short article from Gamatsu. A neo-futuristic mystery RPG called Motto Anomalies has been announced for everything, due out in 2023. Which, let's see, we got some screenshots here. Looks like it might be a little bit more of an action game. Doesn't look like a visual novel, at least. It says it's a turn-based RPG. That would make sense. I really don't have time to watch the blurred out trailers of games, but I probably should. This definitely comes off as a particularly weird looking game with that trailer, but who knows what it really will look like. Anonymous Code Character File 2 trailer is now available if you want to check that out on Gamatsu. Team 7 is going to publish a co-op beat-em-up dungeon brawler called Brave and Greedy for basically every console and PC. So, yeah. It doesn't look particularly too unique, but doesn't look terrible either. Famitsu sales have been updated, with Klonoa being new starting in the 5th spot, and then that being the only new game at all. Nintendo Switch still holding the first 8 spots. And then hardware sales. Again, PlayStation 5 at 12,000, Xbox Series X S at 4,000. Yep. Definitely feels like whatever they actually have in stock is affecting the Xbox sales and PlayStation sales more than anything, whereas Nintendo seems to always have some in stock in Japan for Switches, which probably makes a lot of sense. They probably have too much stock in Japan and not enough stock elsewhere in other places. Yars Recharged has been announced for everything, including Stadia. Yars Recharged, I assume, is a remake of Yars Revenge, which would be the sequel to a shoot-'em-up arcade game that I don't remember the name of. Centipede or something. Looking at the screenshots, though, it actually does not feel like it's a remake. It feels like it's a brand new game. It's being published by Atari, but developed by Atom Vision Studios, so it might actually be good. But I'm not sure how many people remember Yars Revenge, or even care about Yars Revenge for that kind of game. PlayStation Stars loyalty plan being announced. We already talked about that. Rumbleverse launches August 11th, which you could have told me it was already released for as much as I've paid attention to it. Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous comes to PS4 and Xbox One and Switch on September 29th. 2 Point Campus, welcome to the academic year. Trailer is available if you want to check that out. Survios announces Aliens, a single-player horror action game for consoles, PC, and VR, just called Aliens. developed in Unreal Engine 5. I'm not sure Survios though has made anything else. If anything, this feels like this is going to be a case where 20th Century Fox 20th Century Games now apparently is the new name of that subsidiary. I wouldn't be surprised if they hired or used an in-house team to make a kind of low-effort game to promote or tease out the idea of a new Aliens movie, and it's not going to be anything more than an advertisement. We already talked about Multiversus open beta launching July 26. Let's see, Skate will be free to play, support fully cross-play and cross-progression between last gen, current gen, and PC. It's kind of funny they even have to say cross-progression between last gen, current gen, and PC. Like, that is pretty much taken as an assumption. Still not really sure what free to play means though. Crossplay probably should be considered a default now also. A game called Fuga Melodies of Steel 2 has been announced, which I assume means that there was a game called Fuga Melody of Steel 1. Yep. I vaguely remember this game. It is on the wish list. It is very positive. So they're making a sequel. SD Gundam Battle Alliance opening movie is available if you want to check that out. Strangers in Paradise. Final Fantasy Origin DLC trailers and details and screenshots are available on Komatsu if you want to check that out. Live A Live's final trailer is available if you want to check that out. You know, I could probably curate a lot of this news I'm noticing. If it is just going to be trailers, like, I could get rid of trailers, but then there oftentimes would be no news. And trailers are news, at least in the video game world. So, I don't know what I really would curate too much. Or should I curate anything? Because curating at some point is also censoring. Moving on, Gamatsu says RPG Maker Unite details parallax mapping and larger parts. Which, EA, more features for RPG Maker to let more garbage game creators make more garbage games. Let's see. Square Enix has launched a game development community, Live Interactive Works game development crew, which, let's see. Apparently that invites people to participate in test and play and discussion of games and development, as well as create games together. I wonder if this is a case where Square Enix is trying something here to figure out some new ideas for games as Square Enix is running out of ideas, or maybe this is just kind of a weird, almost intern type project or game jam like project. Let's see. The Atlas Survey 2022 results will have a special broadcast on July 26th, which I assume them announcing the survey results will probably not lead to much other announcements. A game called Kona 2 Brume has been announced for basically everything. What does Kona 2 look like? Yeah, it looks like a survival adventure game. Again, I guess the question would be, where's Kona 1? And is it well received? Kona 2 is already on Steam. Kona 1. Here. Every single tab in the new thing. Alright. And I guess I dismiss this as probably being a horror game, and that's why it's not on the fall list or the watch list. So I think I probably need to reevaluate that and go ahead and put this on the wish list, which also means I need to click on it. So we'll do that later. They have more trailers for Alice Gears of Aegis. I'm not interested in that on Gamatsu. Anonymous Code has another character trailer, if you want to check that out. Let's see. And then the seems to be another collection of games, 23 through 33, for the Japanese Sega Genesis Mega Drive Mini 2. So the list of games here I think are particularly Japanese centric from the looks of them. Yeah, I'd be very surprised if these are the exact same games that get released in the Western version. And then 505 Games parent company Digital Brothers has established a new publishing label called Hook. The label is designed to support rising development talent. Pretty much anytime you hear of a company getting deeper into publishing, that tends to mean they don't want to be in development. Alright, let's start going through the games that came out on Steam. This one I think is probably a little too black and white for its own good, but I'm gonna be generous and give it a follow. Assassin's Girls here is one with nudity. Inherently, these ones that have nudity in them are going to have some like thumbnail that is going to be uncensored, and so I'm only going to do this for a while, maybe until well, I don't want to get a content community guideline strike from the think of it. I need to look at the settings and have it pop up the warning by default, so I don't just barrel into that situation. As far as Assassin's Girls, again, it's taller animated girls. I wouldn't quite call it CGI, but it's tall kind of ladies. They do have different color in the hair, so if different colored hair like blue and red means anime, then I guess you might fall under that category, but I really wouldn't call it an anime style so much. And it is just a collection of pictures and tile puzzle games, but clearly we are seeing adult games released. So I guess at a certain level Valve is having its cake and eating it too, because they are allowing a lot of the garbage adult jigsaw puzzle type games from the West on their storefront, even though nobody is really seeing them other than major enthusiasts, and they probably aren't selling anywhere as much as they should, considering the demand out there. And on top of that, they are also still censoring anything that is more Moe or Eastern, or the Eastern companies just are uninformed or unwilling to go through the same procedure that the Western companies are going through. Let's see, this game Kingdom Fall I think we'll say no to, because it is really getting down to the point where it should probably be a one-on-one parody. For every Eastern Moe anime styled adult game, there should be a Western adult game, and vice versa. And it doesn't seem like that's really the case. Seems like we're getting 3 or 4 Western adult games every couple days. And then we're getting maybe 2 Eastern adult games on the weekends. And this is a weekend, so if I do see any, that would still lean into that theory that was slightly wrong. Now this isn't actually an adult game from the looks of it. So, This is just a standard visual novel, which looks fine. But are we keeping every visual novel, every moe visual novel? I mean, I'm gonna have to reevaluate my opinion on that. This game, It's Dark, on the other hand, is easily dismissed. And Dragon Trails is easily dismissed. Tor Eternum, I can say no to. John Brick is a John Wick parody, but it doesn't look quite polished enough for that to make enough sense to say yes to. Here we have one called Pinball Girlfriend that I'm not sure actually has any adult content in it, and ironically I don't think it actually has pinball in it either. Yeah. Pinball Girlfriend seems to just be lewd imagery with cleavage and that. And then it seems to be one of these shoot a lot of balls at once to break bricks games that's closer to an Arkanoid clone than a pinball or even a pachinko game. You might call it a reverse pachinko game. You can see in the description here, though, that it says where reveal clothing and pose suggestions. Pose suggestively. Should be what it says. So hardly a real adult game there. That being said, the next game does seem to actually be a actual adult game. So we have Golden Axe Idol here that does have nudity in it, and I can't really tell for sure what kind of game it actually is. It looks like it might be mostly visual novel, but then it might also be some kind of resource management game. Like they really are not focusing in on the actual experience. And yeah, there isn't even a mature content warning at this point. So it may be a case that if you tag it as adult only, you get less views, and developers have figured that out very quickly, but you don't then have to put in a mature content warning or description, because it's just assumed. So not only does this like reset the counter with Golden Axe Idol as far as Eastern games, where Eastern games with an Eastern anime style, not particularly the most moe style, as far as characters are concerned. Like, it's not particularly short, not particularly more moe, or young, could be perceived as young as a character. But yeah, I suppose this is resetting the counter as the first actual adult tag Eastern game I've seen. And so we need to start a second timer in my mind as to, will I see another Eastern adult only labeled game in the next week, or in the next 2 weeks, or even later in the next month. If I see them all the time and then the ratio is just a little skewed where we see like 5 Western adult games for every 1 Eastern games, at least that could be something I could recognize and adjust to, and that would be the new normal and a new understanding of what the market really is at as far as adult games on Steam. But if it's wildly off and we see 20 Western games for 1 Eastern games, that seems wrong. It's not wrong based on population percentages, but it is totally wrong based on the amount of content I know is being created out there. Moving on, we have a game called Homemade TCG, which the animation here just looks way bad. Yeah, we have another adult game called Phantom Tentacle, although this one seems to have been censored and put out in a censored version to everyone. So you can see it does not contain sexual behavior or extreme violent content. Only bare thighs and part of the chest are being shown. And this is the level of censorship that we know are happening here. Like, there's a different version of this drawing here where this dress was added after the fact. You can clearly see the way this is drawn, and this is going over her forearm when this is supposed to be a part of a sleeve that would have gone behind her forearm. That this is not been, this wasn't the original animation, and you just don't draw a pose like this with a dress, and they have censored it. Same is going to be true here. This dress was not originally there. This dress, or at least this part of the dress, was probably missing in the original image, and we really would not see that level of censorship. Like, these girls were almost certainly topless, at least in each of these images originally. You wouldn't see that level of self-censorship or censorship if it wasn't being forced on them for some reason. These kinds of games are not going to sell one bit being censored better than they would being uncensored, because there's no real gameplay or content other than the nudity. In the same way that a porn would not sell if all the nudity and sex was censored out. That's the whole reason you're looking at a porn. Moving on, we have a game here called Backroom VRs, which is yet another garbage backrooms game. Here we have a game called a Mirror Puzzle, which there might be something to this, so I'll give it a follow. We have about 50 games left. Stunts Contest Police Car, looks like an asset flip game. Here we have another adult game. Hentai Jigsaw Photo Studio Nico Girls, Nico being the Japanese word for cat. And it's a jigsaw puzzle game, and I would say the art style here, it's not really what I would call modern in a modern anime style. It might have been somewhat accurate to what a 70s era anime style would be, but otherwise I would just have to put that under a different category of animation. Again, it's an adult only game, so that's not one that I would really put in the same category, but it is another game that I definitely would have missed with the old system, and definitely will miss with the new system. I've got to figure out a way to do this. better. I don't know if there's really a way to check for check for this or move them around. That's the system I'm trying to figure out. Is a way to put the adult games in one category at the end, so we could have a more adult block at the end of streams. Something that if I have to edit things out, would work, or something that I would know for a fact I shouldn't show on screen with the web peak. But I don't know how to do it. Which kind of points out Steam's own flaws to the system. Like, Steam should be showing these games to people a little bit more often, but then it should be popping up warnings before it actually shows the page. Although that's not a friction-free experience, and Steam wants to make as frictionless of an experience as possible. This game doesn't look like anything. Let's see. Nebular Crush doesn't look like anything. Alexander, Great Secrets of Power. For a couple of weeks there, we were not seeing any hidden object games, and HH Games is, I guess, back in the business of selling those games. Here we have a game called Hauling Away, which feels again like it might have been a censored game. Otherwise, it's just a low-effort visual novel. Definitely doesn't look like anything of interest. Wardmaster looks like it's just a too simplistic for its own good ward puzzle game. We have a game called The Horror of Oz, which feels like it's trying to go with the Alice in Wonderland or Wizard of Oz idea, but it's one of these new resurgence of Pac-Man in a horror game concepts. Shall put that on the fall list, even though it doesn't have a release date. It's shocking that Pac-Man could ever have any kind of resurgence, but it somehow has managed to be done. And arguably, it may just be that there are some low-effort games that use assets that pre-render and pre-build mazes to make a Pac-Man game more than there is an actual demand or interest in playing a Pac-Man game. This game, Far Away, is a Lander clone, it looks like. Nothing interesting there. Westwood Shadows looks visually polished enough as a horror game to deserve a follow, I think. Fairness Hercules is just a peeked across game. Although at a certain point, I guess there might be some nudity in even that. Tokyo Rogue is a swinging platformer game of no interest. And here we have another game with adult content called Dingo, which is a water physics game where you're just drawing a bridge to make water fall from point A to point B. And then they've thrown in the adult content, the nudity, for no good reason. And it definitely feels like this is one of those games that just potentially didn't even bother to license these images and just downloaded them on the internet. Regardless, the actual experience of a physics game to get this water here is no way connected to the adult content, and that is certainly another aspect that I'm going to have to deal with, is that as I look at more adult games, I'm going to see more adult games that are straight up just garbage that aren't even really trying to have a game and are just trying to sell on pictures that you can find similar versions of for free online, I'm sure. This game running on Magic looks nicely animated, so I'm going to put it on the follow list, even if it is potentially just a simplistic platformer. Punji VR here, or Punjai VR. It's not animated well enough. Prostitute Simulator. Interesting. Is this an adult game? Yes, it is. Wasn't really expecting that. But I mean, why wouldn't I be expecting that? The terrible animation 3D models and a game where you play as a prostitute. Now, at a certain level, if Grand Theft Auto deserves to exist, the opposite probably should exist. Like in GTA, like robbing, killing, beating up prostitutes was something that you, I think, could actually do. In at least one of the GTAs with a mod or something, and prostitutes were definitely walking around in GTA, so you could definitely see a case where if you were to make a better GTA, you would be able to play as several different characters. I don't know if there really is much of a game around the idea of walking the streets and acting as a prostitute, but it would definitely be a challenge to explore, I would say. There isn't that much game to stealing cars either, but they made several GTAs around that. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Worlds of Nyx, which doesn't look like anything of interest. Here we have a game called Real Rage, which doesn't look like anything of quality. Here we have a game called Rebel Souls, which just looks like an 8-bit RPG game. We have about 10 more games, I would say. Probably 20. Raw Britter doesn't look good enough as a survival game. Solar Sector Tactics. Even on a Friday, though, I'm not seeing a ton of adult games, which we would almost expect there to be a large uptick in adult games over this weekend, and that's something I'll have to keep an eye on. This Glory to the Colosseum might actually be something. One Colosseum/Arena gladiatorial game with a lot of variety to it might work, and that's definitely what I'm kind of seeing here. Although it also says turn-based tactics, which then makes me uninterested, so I'm going to take it off the follow list. Next we have a game called Never Break Up, which seems like it might be a puzzle game where you're connected to elements or other players. I'll check that out later on the follow list. Here we have a game called Fira, which could be something, or it could be an asset flip puzzle exploration game. In a lot of ways, solving puzzles with some magical ability to move fire, or just solving puzzles by having a character walk around, is an improvement over a lot of the other experiences. Like The Witness, for instance, you're in first person when maybe you should have been in third person in that case, but maybe not. One way or the other kind of doesn't matter. And that might be the case, really, is that if the focus is on the puzzles, maybe you don't need a character. But if you don't show a character, then the character you're playing as doesn't really feel like a human being. The Talos principle, for instance, really would not have worked if you had played it first person and never seen yourself as a robot. So it was very important to the story and the Talos Principle that you see yourself as a robot and realize that's the character you're controlling. Whereas, yeah, there was like no story in The Witness really, and if there was story in The Witness and there was a character, it probably would have been better. We have a game called Century City, which, yeah, I think we can say no to this. It looks like it would be fine, but not special enough for this kind of game to make me interested in it. Final Earth 2 looks like nothing. Desktop Monkey is probably a desktop toy of a monkey, so we'll say no to that. Here we have another game with nudity. Hot MILF 7, which I guess, or no, it's Hot MILF 7, which I guess means that there has been 6 previous of these jigsaw puzzle games. And yeah, they definitely seem to be heading more towards the MILF, more towards the older adult depictions, and the animation doesn't look particularly great, particularly on the thumbnail. So yeah, it looks fine. It's just not quite what I would call an anime style. It's still really nothing but a nothing game, and the idea of going for mothers, MILFs, is probably something that we should applaud, because if there is going to be a robust categories of adult content, you are going to have to get into different fetishes, and frankly there is a shocking lack of variety there. You would expect there to be a lot more bondage being shown as part or as whole. You would expect there to be a lot more shibari rope tying up. You'd expect there to be a lot more lesbian and more gay stuff than is actually being shown. This Mystic Island doesn't look like anything. But so far in my brief journey of looking at adult content, it tends to be very heteronormative and vanilla on top of it, at least in the thumbnails. Command and Control Spec Ops Remastered. There might be something to this, but I bet there isn't. I assume that this is just trying to confuse you between this game and Command and Conquer. Yeah, this is a tower defense game, so no to that. Ultimate Muscle Championship here. This comes off as particularly gay, but this is actually just a troll joke game that's not even labeled as adult, and that shows kind of a lack of growth or a lack of embracing a community when the only thing that even comes off as slightly gay is just a total total joke game that is really just trying to make the homosexual lifestyle as bizarre looking and as unnatural and unrelatable as possible. Next we have a game here called Dr. Nanobot. That's why the dad dating software game is probably the best gay game on Steam. Is just dads that happen to be gay dating other dads that happen to be gay, having adopted children, and in the process of raising children. This game doesn't look like anything. Very much trying to show what the gay lifestyle from day to day is, not what you see at the flamboyant and frankly oddly sexual pride parades tend to show. A little too much about it. And a lot of gay people specifically don't like the pride parades because they're just oddly too sexual, or at least there's enough people that are trying to make them oddly too sexual, and so you pretty much need to rethink and recreate and crack down on what a pride parade is, because there definitely are pride parades where people are just waving rainbow flags and marching and singing and just showing off their pride. And then there's also pride parades where you have men in assless chaps dancing on floats to It's Raining Men, or drag queens in revealing clothing, or topless women, lesbians, and things like that. And so, yeah, I don't know if that really helps. Yeah, they need to think about what their perception is on some of the pride parades. And then we have our GameDeveloper.com articles. We had already talked about this. Bayonetta introducing a new mode to toggle the in-game nudity, or semi-nudity as it actually is. It's not real nudity, unlike the other games we've been talking about. And Bayonetta 3, with that censorship, or optional censorship, does oddly seem like it is becoming less artistically diverse, not more, and the Bayonetta series is the closest stepping stone to bridge a gap between something that is outright explicitly an adult game and a regular AAA game, which Bayonetta is a AAA game that happens to just lean into the lewd aspect every now and then. And very few other games dare to go anywhere close to what Bayonetta shows, and Bayonetta barely shows anything. There was an announcement, and it doesn't have anything to do with video games, though, that WWE on the USA Network, the Raw, is going from being PG-13, or from PG to PG-13, I think, TV-14. So they are effectively planning to be more adult-oriented, because wrestling's not for kids, I guess, when really I think wrestling is for kids. But this may also be the USA Network rating the live event higher, and not WWE's plans. Right now, Vince McMahon is in trouble for paying off a mistress. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's somebody else in charge that's taking the company in a different direction, and frankly, it might be a good thing for the company to go in a different direction, particularly in the midst of the pandemic. I don't think too many people are that interested in wrestling at the moment. Moving on, GameDeveloper.com also has an article around Nintendo acquiring Dynamo Pictures, and an article around the PlayStation Stars loyalty programs. EA announcing that the Skate Revival will be an online live service game. And then Resident Evil 2 Remake selling over 10 million copies. So we may not have a single GameDeveloper.com article today that isn't just repeated. Apparently, the Indie Bundle for Abortion Funds raised over $380,000 to aid reproductive rights, which is a lot of money, certainly, but it's not not really that much money. Like their apparent goal was 400,000, so they didn't even make their goal. This almost certainly was a bundle that just wasn't really thought out, and I just don't think. If anything, that really just goes to show the amount of support that people are willing to put their money with as far as abortion or supporting abortion. It's just not very palatable that you would put your money towards that, even if you totally are pro-choice. It makes more sense that you would give money directly, or directly to people that need an abortion, or you'd save it for yourself. But yeah, it's just not really palatable. That is arguably the only argument that I've heard that people have said is protecting gay marriage in the United States, which undoubtedly it seems like that would be something they would also try to overturn and get rid of gay marriage. Is that people actually are pretty positive, have a fairly positive reaction to gay marriage, whereas even pro-choice people don't have that knee-jerk initial positivity around abortions. Here's an interesting update. The NPD group has retracted its claim, saying that Elden Ring was one of the top highest grossing games. They're citing an incomplete data set, which that makes a lot of sense, because that was an insane claim. Certainly they probably meant to say something else, and I guess this is the day for updates and retractions, because Mediatonic has released a further statement apologizing for the error and promising no honor all refund requests for cosmetics. Which, yeah, I'm sure banks would have loved to rake them over the coals if they hadn't. Sony has completed its acquisition of Bungie, which probably doesn't change much, but it is now done. Let's see if there's anything else on my Twitter feed, and then we'll call it a day. These streams obviously can consistently be shorter if I just don't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Which, yeah, I guess I could probably get these streams down to an hour and 45 minutes if I just didn't play any Yu-Gi-Oh! At all. I'm not really wanting to go that direction, but the crutch of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! While covering video game news is not really working that well. And maybe it's a factor of me just not really having that much to say. But I could see eventually, if I got good enough, just doing video game news and only video game news on the live streams and cutting out Yu-Gi-Oh! Completely. Like, if I got banned from Yu-Gi-Oh! For some reason, I don't know if I would actually bend over backwards to go back to playing Shadowverse or Hearthstone or something like that, or if I would just say, you know what, let's just stop with the collectible card games and just cover the news. Although if I was going to cover the news, it would probably be more of a case where I would want to I probably wanted to make a a new, better amount of commentary. I'd want to do something more than what I do as far as just reading headlines and make a little bit more content. The game Burnhouse Lane is now available for being followed or wishlisted. This is from Harvester Games, maker of the Cat Lady, and it definitely looks like the Cat Lady, but I don't know for sure if this is now going to be a fourth game in the same series. Maybe, maybe not. I wouldn't be surprised if there is just this desire to make yet another Cat Lady type game. And they're calling it the Devil Came Through Here trilogy previously. And the Cat Lady, I believe, lived on Burnhouse Lane. It is going to be some of the connection there. Part of the things, though, about the Cat Lady or the Devil Came Through Here trilogy is that each game felt a little bit different, focused on a different character, played a little bit differently, so there's less of a consistent experience than what I really would have liked. And then finally, GameDeveloper.com also had this article: World of Warcraft is getting more flexible gender expression tools, which, okay, yeah. So the gendered descriptions are going to be now labeled as body 1 and body 2. Which, of course, GameDeveloper.com sees that as a big successful progress or big improvement. If anything, though, this feels like this is tokenistic changes, because instead of adding something, you're just changing something at best, or you're taking something away at worst. Because, however, depending on how you implement something like this, if you want to describe yourself or your character as male, that option may be getting taken away. Or if you want to describe yourself as female, if you feel like your character is a male or female, and it's now, no, you can only describe yourself as body 1, body 2. The way to fix this obviously would be to have each have a lot more body types instead of just a male and female getting relabeled. Add 6 to 8 more body types, because there are different body types. There is the spoon, there is the ruler, there is the hourglass shape. Most people familiar with the hourglass shape. There's probably several more that I am not aware of or don't remember. But yeah, there's 4 or 5 different kinds of body types as far as what the hip to chest to waist ratio would be. Really, if you get better, you would customize it so you could have thicker thighs, thicker calves, thinner calves, thicker width hips, thinner hips. If you just let all of those be customizable, that would be fine. And then all of a sudden you're not doing that. Bigger breasts, smaller breasts. Men have breasts. Men get breast cancer at pretty much the exact same rate as women, but don't get tested anywhere as much as women. But yeah, so bigger breasts, less breast, that's fine. Broad shoulders, small shoulders, different facial features, whether you have a sharp square jaw or a pointy, more feminine jawline. All of those are things. Adam's apple, if you're going to depict an Adam's apple on or off, more sunken, less sunken. All of those could be features you could add to the game without, and say, we've just overhauled the way we allow you to make your character in the first place. And then, oh, by the way, because there's so many features here, none of them are going to particularly start off with a default label of being male or female. We're just going to start you off with a random character, and then if you want to make something that you feel like personally looks like a male, you could do that. In World of Warcraft, they're not going to render genitals, but even in that scenario, you could definitely have, is it going to have a vulva and a penis and testicles, or all of the above? You could do any combination there easily, and then you could make all kinds of hermaphrodite type scenarios. It's not completely unheard of for a very small percentage of men to even have two penises. So throw that in there too if you're gonna render genders. But yeah, when you are just changing the labels, that really just comes off as tokenist and not really caring, not giving more options. And if you don't care, just don't do anything. Just say traditionally World of Warcraft has been around for 20 years, and traditionally that's how it's been, and so we're going to just leave it at that. And oddly, Borderlands has partnered up with a candle company to sell scented candles. Moxie's Bar and Tiny Tina's Wonderland candles. It feels like Borderlands is selling out at this point, just completely selling out. I think Randy Pitchford doesn't care anymore. I think he's trying to get the Borderlands movie out and then get his money and then retire and leave the company behind. He's already effectively sold the company to the Embracer Group, so I don't think he cares. And then the Embracer Group, I have no idea if they care or not, because it does seem like they only really care about acquiring companies and don't seem to really care if those companies they acquire actually make games or publish games. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see one or two, or one or both of the Gearbox offices shut down in the next 10 years. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Borderlands series is mostly abandoned. And maybe it needs a good half a decade of rest anyways. It's got maybe too many games in the first place. But yeah, we're definitely not... I'm not expecting much from Gearbox as far as any new Borderlands games or any other kinds of new games. Anyways, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.